weekend here in New York City. And they are Steve Britt, Leona Hilliard, Alex Lobis, Christy Hanna, Mike Harvey, Mickey French, Jeff Moran, Kendrick Jan, John Simmons, and Catherine Hesser. Primetime Thursday is coming up next on ABC, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Joel on Sunday night at 9, 8 Central. From New York, everybody, good night.
Friday, after 2 episodes of Two Guys and a Girl and Norm, the Madigan men will do anything to move into the penthouse apartment in their building. ABC Friday.
This is Primetime Thursday. With Diane Sawyer and Charles Gibson.
Tonight, a mother, a father, and their newborn girls. One of the most wrenching stories of the year. Twins, their bodies joined, their spines fused. One must die so the other can live.
We couldn't believe it. I didn't believe it at all.
Tonight, for the first time, new parents who faced that difficult choice and said no, they wouldn't do it.
They both have our daughters. They both have our daughters.
Deeply faithful, they said they'd never sacrifice one daughter to save the other until the courts made the decision for them. A primetime exclusive, Jody's parents.
A tale of two brothers, power, politics, sibling rivalry, brotherly love. One in the White House, the other left to mop up in Florida. And what about his future?
This guy's a good guy, and I love him a lot.
A complex relationship.
Jeb was always the tow-headed little boy, sort of following in George W.'s footsteps.
Their father dreamed of a political dynasty, but the family thought Jeb would be carrying the banner. Senior correspondent Chris Wallace looks at George W. and his kid brother, Jeb.
It could happen anytime. A car out of nowhere slams into you from the side. Watch what it can do to your head. It happened to them.
I didn't see the truck coming until the very last second, and it was too late.
The truck hit her daughter broadside, and yet she walked away, saved by a new kind of airbag.
It's stored up in the roof area.
It actually cradles the head from side impact, as these tests show.
In 100% of the cases, these things work. They're remarkable.
Thousands of people die like this each year. So what's taking the government so long to act? Sylvia Chase with the Primetime Owner's Manual.
Christmas beyond your wildest dreams. If money is no object, what would you buy? A $19,000 toy for the kids? $4,000 shoes for Dad? How about $1 million watch?
I can't even read it. For $1 million, you ought to be able to see the watch a little bit.
Cynthia McFadden joins a personal shopper on a gift-buying spree.
How much kind of sort of did we spend today?
I would say we spent $350,000, moving towards probably $1 million for the week.
Tonight, Primetime's ultimate gift guide.
Primetime Thursday, December 14th, 2000.
And good evening. We're glad to be with you live this Thursday night.
This is Primetime Thursday. We're delighted you could join us. I'm worried that Cynthia may have spent the entire year's budget, but we'll find out a little bit later.
But let us begin with a story right on the top of the news. Few of us probably can imagine being George W. Bush tonight, about to assume the most powerful position in the world. But we probably all recognize a powerful experience he's already lived, that of sibling love, sibling rivalry, and not just any sibling. A brother known for his intelligence and competitiveness, all his own. Jeb Bush, governor of Florida. Let's face it, these past 5 weeks, with Florida hanging in the balance, can't have been easy for these two Bush brothers. So senior correspondent Chris Wallace set out to learn more in a report we call His Brother's Keeper.
Election night in Austin, Texas, and the Bush family gathers for dinner at the Shoreline Grill.
I think we're doing fine.
The candidate seems confident. But the smiles are soon gone when the networks call the key state of Florida for Al Gore. George W.'s brother, Jeb, the governor of Florida, apologizes for letting him down, says Tom Fiedler of the Miami Herald.
Jeb was thoroughly distraught. He went to his brother in tears to his family, and he told them then that that at this point he could not believe that that was the case, that Florida would stand in the way of his brother winning the presidency.
But Jeb doesn't give up. Making calls back to Florida, he tells his brother the networks are wrong, and the candidate goes on television to say so.
Wait till they count all the votes, and I think America ought to wait before they count all the votes too.
The dramatic ups and downs of election night, the battle for the White House, is just one chapter in the rich relationship of the Bush brothers. It's a fascinating mix of sibling support and rivalry that played a big role in this campaign to remember. Growing up in Texas, the thing to remember is that Jeb wasn't George W.'s younger brother, but his kid brother. There's a 7-year difference. They were brought up in a highly competitive family. But according to Bush biographer Elizabeth Mitchell, the pecking order was clear.
Jeb was always the tow-headed little boy, sort of following in George W.'s footsteps.
Their father had dreams. In the 60s, with all the talk of the Kennedy dynasty, he said of his sons, quote, "Just wait till I turn these Bush boys out." But as the Bush boys grew up, the dynamic between Jeb and George W. evolved. The older brother went to Yale, where he made gentleman's C's and seemed more interested in partying. Jeb raced through the University of Texas in 2.5 years, graduating Phi Beta Kappa, and moved to Florida, he said later, to escape his father's shadow. Would it be fair to say, then, that Jeb was the good son and George W. was the wild one?
Oh, yes. I mean, even George W. has joked to Queen Elizabeth that he was the black sheep of the family.
It became an article of faith in the family that if there were a potential politician, it was Jeb, not his older brother. By 1994, Jeb had paid his dues, working his way up the Republican Party. He decided to run for governor. He was shocked when George W., then owner of the Texas Rangers, decided he'd run too, for governor of Texas.
I'm going to be the next governor of this state.
It got worse. When critics said Jeb was running on his father's name,
Hi, boy.
He came up with this response.
That I'm a candidate for governor not because I'm George Bush's son. I tell them that I'm a candidate for governor because I'm George and Noel and Jeb's father.
George W. liked the line so much, he started using it in Texas, saying he was running as the father of his twin girls.
Then my brother George proceeded to steal the line and made national news with it, so now I've changed it.
But Jeb wasn't laughing on election night in '94, when George W. won, and he lost.
That really was something that hit Jeb very, very hard. It took him probably 6 months to a year to even recover from that. To be the loser at anything in the Bush family is to, I think, suffer a real wound.
By 1998, they were both governors. And George W. introduced his younger brother to the club.
This guy's a good guy, and I love him a lot.
Still, there was that needling sense of humor that is a Bush trademark.
Well, I've been telling him what to do for, how old are you?
A lot younger than you.
Yeah. I've been telling him what to do for 45 years, and he hasn't listened yet.
As governors, they've developed styles that couldn't be more different. We know George W. well by now. Great people person, not a policy wonk, likes his time off. Now listen to how family friend Charles Cobb describes Jeb.
He's first incredibly smart, Phi Beta Kappa, great intelligence.
So he loves to sit at his computer and answer emails or respond to queries.
It's probably more like the difference between Al Gore and George W.
Jeb is more like Al Gore than he is like his brother?
Yeah, I think so.
This year, the pecking order was clear once again. George W. was the Republican nominee for president, and Jeb was the loyal supporter. At the Bush estate in Maine this summer, their parents talked about their sons with pride. Barbara Bush remembered a scene at the Republican convention when Jeb approached George W.
He said, "Big brother," he said, I've been watching you the last year, and about 5 months ago I looked at you and said, you look like a president. You are a president. And he said, I'm in awe of you, and I'm proud of you, and I love you. And his mother cried.
My brother, George W. Bush, the next president of the United States.
But there has always been an edge to this relationship, and it was still there in the fall campaign. As George W. was fighting to win Florida, his brother was often missing in action. Political analysts say Jeb didn't want to get in the middle of a tough campaign that might jeopardize his own programs.
To the extent that he saw his brother's campaign as having to immerse himself in politics without having the gain at the end of it for himself, he was reluctant to do it, and he was very slow to do it.
Florida Republican leaders grumbled about Jeb's low profile. And so, in his own way, did his big brother.
Little brother's, he recognizes that Thanksgiving might be a little chilly if things don't go well.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
No pressure, brother.
Which brings us back to election night and the latest twist in the drama of the Bush brothers. At first, Jeb again tried to stay out of the controversy, letting Secretary of State Katherine Harris handle it. But as the chaos dragged on, Jeb finally said he would support a special legislative session to name a slate of electors for George W.
I can't recuse myself from my constitutional duties as governor of the state. And I can't recuse myself, frankly, of being my brother's brother either.
Now, the election is over, but Jeb may still pay a price.
Take this state back from the Bushes!
There are many in Florida who feel the process was rigged and blame the governor. His poll numbers are down 5 points, and some say the damage will last.
You have 50% of the electorate in Florida very angry, I think many of them feeling that this presidency was stolen from them and that Jeb Bush was certainly a co-conspirator.
It may not seem fair, but sometimes that's the way it is in families. George W., who came late to politics and maturity, is on his way to the White House and history, while the so-called good brother, Jeb, is back in Tallahassee, trying to clean up the mess.
And for those of you who are wondering, could there be a spot for Jeb Bush in his brother's cabinet? The answer is no. After Bobby Kennedy served as Attorney General for his brother, Congress passed a law banning a president's close relatives from serving in the cabinet. And one other election footnote. 2 weeks ago, we watched as helicopters swooped in on a Ryder truck ferrying 500,000 ballots from West Palm Beach to Tallahassee. Well, tonight, this is a live picture of that Ryder truck, now maybe the most valuable Ryder truck of all time. Just a little while ago, it was auctioned off for charity over the internet. The top bid, $67,100 for a little piece of history. And a truck already driven 31,297 miles. We'll be back.
Light up your holiday with a really big sale. At Sears 48-hour sale, all home appliances, camcorders, and TVs, like this 35-inch Panasonic, now just $699.99, are on sale. This is no time to fool around.
Need help sending gifts? We've got extra staff and longer hours to relieve that holiday stress. Just stop by your local mailboxes, etc. We'll